when we look at the project, when I was developing the project and going from the very first early drafts and developing the format, I was never able to answer whether it needed sound. And it wasn't until I completed chapters 1 and 2 and watched them that I thought sound would work. But I have never been able to satisfactorily articulate why. And so I just know that it's valuable. And I knew, based on your writings and your absolutely magnificent catalog of works, that you would be the perfect composer and creator to provide sound for it and to be able to contextualize it. So the question for you is that, are you further along than me? When you saw the text rolling across the screen for the first time, did you think that sound would work for it? And if so, why? Like, have you articulated it better than I have?
I guess it's a question of synergy. And my impression was that I can imagine your film work, what you've done so far, without sound perfectly well. And then I suppose that will be a different. My impression after working with it is that it will be quite a different experience of what the film is showing and how it's showing it. And I'm not sure whether that is better or worse. I guess I prefer the one with the sound, obviously, but perhaps I see them as two different things. My impression was that the synergy that took place with the sound, and because I was really working for the film, not just with the film, and tailoring things with what I thought it was the sort of the spirit of the film. I think the synergy now creates perhaps a much stronger impact. The sound that I've developed has a very dramatic component. Has also a dramatic evolution throughout the duration of each chapter. And I think that's clear. So when you watch the film now with the sound, especially if you hear the sound as, I would say, as properly as you will watch the images, and that's the reason for headphones, we can talk about this later, then I am pretty sure that anyone will agree that is it is now loaded with that dramatism. I'm not sure to what degree you were looking or not looking for that kind of what I will call dramatism. Dramatism in a very generic sense. So in the sense of drama, in the generic sense of drama, and I think that it feels more to me more emotional, and because of the synergy, I think there's a particular interesting aspect of the combination of the two now, the film and the soundtrack, which is. The film contains, let's say, text only. There are no visible characters. There's no people in the images. There's only text. But you somehow feel people behind the text, whether real people or AI people, entities. You feel them. You have their presence in that particular manifestation. And just having that sparse aspect of the film, that minimal, if we could use that term, aspect of the film with very complex, dynamic, dramatic sound, I think is an interesting balance. It's an interesting contrast between those two things. But definitely, my main feeling is one of synergy.
You feel strongly that people need to listen to this with headphones on, and good headphones if they can, to be able to access all of the sound material that is there. Am I correct in that?
Yes. The soundtrack is built and is being mastered as a binaural audio construction. And there are good reasons for that. You can listen to it in any way you want. You can play through whatever playback system and through whatever speaker system, but it will be optimal through a binaural. And it will be optimal on headphones of minimum decent quality, because of a more generic question that doesn't have to do with this particular film or with my particular work for the film. It has to do with the technological condition or situation of today. Today, the bottleneck, the weak point of the change of sound reproduction is not in the quality of the audio files. All the systems, all the common systems that people use to reproduce sound as part of videos or music today from smartphones or computers or whatever it is not in the resolution of the audio files, which is typically quite high. And most devices can reproduce the very high resolution audio files, 48 kilohertz or whatever it is. So high quality, let's say high quality, quote unquote, audio. The bottleneck today is in the speakers. Most people will listen to very good resolution audio files through very bad speakers. And that is sort of paradoxical, but it's of course logical. It is explained by the way media are used today, and portable media for listening or watching videos are used today. But that is the bottleneck. The bottleneck for audio today is not a question of resolution of audio quality in the traditional sense. It's a question of audio quality in the end point of the change of playback, which are the speakers. So what happens is that for example, if you use a smartphone and you're playing your film or the audio files the soundtrack that I did, and you're just listening through the speaker of the iPhone or an iPad even, then there's a lot of things that are there that you won't even hear them. I work a lot with low frequencies. There's a lot, and not exclusively, but there's a lot of low components and very high pitch sounds as well that are really not rendered. They are not there, simply not there when you listen to laptop speakers, for example. So the equivalent is not an equivalent between having a small screen, watching a film on a small screen, or at least not strictly an equivalent, and having the sound through very big, nice speakers. The equivalent will be that when you're watching the film on your playback system, there are colors that are not there. There are whole parts of the spectrum, of the visual spectrum, that are not there. You don't see the reds, or you don't see the greens, or you don't see, not only you don't see with lower resolution or whatever, or smaller size, is that there are colors that are not there at all. This is the equivalent in sound, what happens with sound, which is not strictly equivalent to what happens with the deficiency of the image for, lower or smaller playback systems. So it is so dramatic that if someone plays the soundtrack, plays the film through a laptop or through an iPhone, they will not hear the soundtrack. They will hear little bits of what is there, but most of it will be simply inaudible. So it is that dramatic. Now, production of sound for reproduction in portable systems, laptops, iPhones, and equivalent, it is done on purpose by working basically with the mid part of the spectrum and reducing things, compressing things, etc., but working basically in that mid spectrum.
When you take a project like this and you're creating sounds for it, you've got the visual text going through that you're going to be working with. Do you put together a kind of a clear intellectual conception of what you're going to do and then go through your library, form sounds, or is it a bit more? Is it more emotional, subconscious than that? How would you describe the process?
Well, it's more like the second. It's really I try to be intuitive with my reactions to, and what I think it will work. I improvise in testing many different things. For example, I did a lot of testing with your visual work by going through many different options that I have and combining layers of sounds and mixing on the fly and testing and comparing and looking and listening at the same time. So I do, let's say that is what you would consider experimenting and improvising as well, and on the fly to make a decision. So that is much more emotional, intuitive than conceptual.
I want to ask about your portable studio, Mobile Messor, and just ask you, can you describe what it is, and did you do the work for chapters 1 and 2 using that?
Well, mobile meso is a term a name that I use for what I carry with me when I'm on the road, and sometimes in wilderness areas, sometimes I'm touring or traveling for projects, and I like to work when I'm on the road, when I'm in the middle of all these other projects, and at least until the pandemic, I was traveling quite intensely, so I had to do a lot of work when I was on the road. Otherwise, I will be just traveling, and so basically, it's a laptop or different laptops that I've used over the years with a few peripherals, but very few things. I have a bunch of small portable digital recorders that I use for very pocket, very cheap equipment actually, and that I used for doing recordings when I'm working on other things. So I can combine but normal things: portable digital recorders, a laptop, and good headphones, very good headphones. And I normally have at least a couple of different headphones to compare, and that is an essential. I work more with headphones than with monitor, with speakers, and I prefer headphones to work. So the combination of those elements, those types of elements, will be my mobile meso in different configurations. But it's very simple, and I'm very proud to. I like to stress the fact that all the technology that I use is very common technology. So common software, common laptops, common models or systems that are accessible to millions of people today. And for me, it's also ethically interesting to work with the same equipment that anyone else could have access to.
So even something as complicated as, say, the Winds Patagonia album, or Buildings New York, both of which sound extraordinary. Those were done using very simple, inexpensive
very
equipment.
simple. The Patagonia, for example, in album, I recorded. Well, there was years of in the making for recordings, but I recorded that with a portable DAT machine. The portable DAT machines, DAT, digital audio tape machines that you had in the early mid 90s. And those were made for like interviews and stuff, and very simple microphones, really. But I spent a lot of time in the field. Time in the field is crucial. It's the key, in my opinion, to do good recordings. And most recording equipment, it's enough quality for microphones and for digital audio recording resolution. The most simple piece of equipment that you buy today is like incomparable to. It has enough quality. What you need in terms of quality is also a question to talk about at length. But what you need, I think, is time in the field or time in the studio to work on things. If you use your time and if you take the time to focus on things, great things happen. But it's not a question of super high sophisticated equipment. I have very simple. When I was doing the residency workshop in the Amazon or in South Africa, most participants have way better equipment than I have in terms of microphones, recorders, and everything. And I work with very simple means, and I'm very proud of it.
I had no idea. I mean, that's one thing, is that you've always been very reluctant. I'm trying to remember, even on the Red Bull studio interview that you did that's on YouTube, and you had, I think, your gear set up. You tend not to do gearhead interviews where you just talk about gear, do you? And I've always found that sometimes that's an in for people. They might have trouble with the music, but if they can talk about the gear, that's kind of a way for them to kind of get in, and it provides a way for them to get into the music and begin to enjoy it from a more technical perspective. But that's a field of inquiry that you really haven't done very much of, have you? Like in a gear sort of sense.
I would say it's a distraction. I think is like, I don't consider that to be first because I truly, sincerely, honestly, I use very simple equipment. I use like really cheap equipment and very simple things. And the second, because I think that's not the point, and I don't want to go that route, because I have personally I have no interest. I'm not a gear-oriented person, and I respect that. I know tons of people that know and have so much gear and know so much more than I do, and I respect that. But to me, that's a distraction, and I want to lead people. I don't think that leads people into deeper or more interesting. I don't think it's an interesting entry point into the music to know about that. On the contrary, I have a intentionally cryptic conception of the making of things. I think that keeps the mystery and keeps the the focus of attention into the music itself and away from that technical. I'm happy to discuss technical things with other people that might be interested if that is the case. But I think I will have very little to contribute, really. So it's not, to me, it's not, it will never happen. No, not really.